What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another episode of Just Jets, episode 284. Today, we're going to get into some really damning quotes. Well, it's positive quotes for Aaron Glenn. It's horrific quotes if you're Robert Saleh. We got another one yesterday from Garrett Wilson, and we have some Breece Hall quotes and Elijah Vera Tucker, guys who aren't usually very vocal, coming out and throwing subtle or not so subtle digs at the last regime. And we'll do your voicemails as well. Guys, we're getting close to the regular season. Week 1, you guys know I and the rest of the Talkin' Jets crew will be at the Week 1 game. Limited tickets are still available. TalkinJets.com. Make sure to pick yours up. All inclusive with the tailgate with Tailgate Joe. And come sit with us for Jets Steelers Week 1. We'll also be at the Bezara Music Festival on Saturday doing a live show from Bezara. Tickets available for that. You can get it all inclusive. You can get one or the other, whatever fits your schedule best. Check it out, TalkinJets.com. And come hang with us for Week 1. We're excited. It's going to be a weekend with the boys, baby. Me, Green Bean, Ryan on Saturday. Then back at it again on Sunday. Really pumped up for what should be a fun weekend. Okay. Garrett Wilson, we'll start with, because that's the most recent. We'll go chronological. I have a quote from Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and then Elijah Vera Tucker. And as I stated, it kind of feels like the Jets finally have a coach that knows what they're doing. But it's interesting to see the subtle digs at previous regimes. We'll start with Garrett Wilson's quote. Let's start there on, some things that have changed since the last regime.
Through camp, what have you seen that's maybe a little different than what you've experienced, your first few years in the league?
Just the competitiveness. Not just talking about being competitive. Like, no, you got to train that way. It's got to feel like that at practice. It's got to feel like if you lose, it sucks at practice. It can't just be, we'll turn it on when the game comes, right? And I think that's the main thing that I see that's different. Just the way we're practicing, the intensity. The stakes. It feels like there's stakes, depending on which period it is, the stakes feel higher based on whether it's a competition red zone or a 2-minute. It feels like you won the drill when you won the drill, right? And it feels like you lost when you lost. And to me, that's how I like it. It's practice, yes, but there's also an opportunity to practice winning and get that feeling and what it takes to just do it, right, on a consistent basis. And I think it starts out here. So that's something that I love to be a part of. And, throughout these first couple months, I've seen it, for sure with the way he's hammering home stuff in meetings.
Okay. So there you go. The line that stands out to me is when he's talking about we'll turn it on when the games come. That is not a successful path for any team. You have to practice like you play. That was one of the first things I ever learned when playing sports. I'm talking first grade gym teacher stuff, being like, you got to practice how you play. And I don't know if it was just towards the end, maybe Saleh was losing the room and we weren't sure who the real leader was on that team with Rodgers and Saleh and maybe a struggle for power. But that is, again, it looked at as a major positive for Aaron Glenn. That's what you want to hear your players saying. But it goes back to just how bad were things the last few years that we just completely glossed over. And maybe that's a little on us as Jet fans to have such high expectations in 2023 and 2024, when clearly this coaching staff was just not good enough for them to be a competitive and good football team, which is sad. Because I thought they had some good players, right? And, clearly underachieved at 5-12 a year ago. But good God, was Robert Saleh really that clueless? And again, it's not just Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall on some changes. Let's see what Breece Hall had to say on some changes that he's seen this week.
It seems like that's different than what maybe you've done the last few years here. Are there other differences in this camp than what you've experienced in previous years?
Practicing in the morning we like that a lot more than practicing at 11, 12, and 90 degrees already, so that's a lot nicer. But I just like the way practice, just the whole operation throughout the day is run. Coach Glenn has done a great job of not only being the players' coach, but making sure that we get the right amount of work in too. So it's been cool to see how he goes about his business and the standard he set for everybody. So for me, it just makes me want to come in every day and like I said, do my 111th every time I'm out on the field.
Okay. Sorry, it started looping over again. But Coach Glenn has done a great job of not only being a player's coach, but making sure that we get the right amount of work in too. Buddy Robert Saleh, especially towards the end, it felt like he just wanted to be everybody's friend. And I think players got a little frustrated on how lax things were and how it was, we'll get him tomorrow kind of a thing. And that was from Joe Douglas to Robert Saleh to the players. Everyone was pointing the finger and blaming someone else. There was a real lack of accountability. I remember that word in a second when I read you Elijah Vera Tucker's quote. But this is something that one of the main reasons why I'm excited, or was excited and still am excited about the Aaron Glenn hire, is because this is what I think the Jets needed. I thought that they were too softly coached, and it led to a very undisciplined team. And honestly, Aaron Glenn's comments from earlier when talking about the referees and why the refs are at training camp is because they were one of the most penalized team. And he said undisciplined teams can't win games. And he's right. He's absolutely right. It's a major indictment on, again, the staff that was just here. And Breece Hall said it. And someone who never really speaks or doesn't really talk all that much, Elijah Vera Tucker was asked something very similar that Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall was. I wasn't able to find the audio, but I found the quote in an article. I haven't seen accountability a lot my first few years. Holy shit, man. That's about as blunt as you can be. Saying that there were no accountability. And that was the theme really from Glenn's comments, from Vera Tucker's, from Garrett, from Breece. There was just this lack of accountability, lack of urgency. And it's, just even little things of the Jets going out there and doing tackling drills in training camp where we're like, oh my God, this might really be a coach here who gets it and is willing to put the extra work in to make sure that the team isn't going to be undisciplined. It's not, the guys are going to police themselves. They're old enough to do it. No, it's an issue. And it's something that we have to change. And his team, being Aaron Glenn, he is not going to stand for that kind of nonsense. And, again, I think that's the right way to go when you have a young team. The Jets team is one of the youngest now in the league after, you move on from some guy. Maybe Nick Folk adds, some years to that and they're no longer one of the youngest. That skews the numbers slightly. But you can't afford to just go, you know what, they're big boys, they can figure it out, when they haven't figured it out. For years, really, this core, you could start counting it since 22, I would say, because that was the Breece, that was the Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner draft. And, young guys like Elijah Vera Tucker, Zach Wilson, yada, 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 the list goes on. The early stages of the Robert Saleh era, they haven't shown at one time through the last 3-4 years that they are a team that's able to handle policing themselves. You have to earn that right. And maybe when you have Aaron Rodgers, who's been in the league for 20 freaking years, it changes things, and Tyron Smith and other guys like that, Morgan Moses, but they're not here anymore. They don't have guys like that. They have a quarterback who's, fighting for his NFL career. They have a running back who's fighting for his next contract. Garrett and Sauce are the only two that got paid. Quinn Williams, Michael Carter, those are other guys who got paid. But they have to be the ones who are leaders, and so does the head coach. A lot of that falls on not only the head coach, but the rest of the coaching staff too. And frankly, the previous regime just did not do a good enough job. And it's so funny to see that, yes, even the little things, forgive me for being excited, that they might actually be doing something right with this football team. Would be really nice to see. And I'm a believer in Aaron Glenn. We'll see if it translates to on the field. I keep saying it, but that's really the next step here. Said all the right things. Training camp's in a good spot with how they're handling the team. When they get to the regular season, that's when it really matters. They got to win games this year. And I'm not saying playoff mandate, but my line has been, show me tangible signs of progress. That's what I'd like to see. The bar is the floor. Step over it, please. Let's get to your voicemails on this program. We get started. Max in New Jersey has some thoughts on the tight ends.
Hi, this is Max calling in from Homeland, New Jersey. Currently on vacation in Germany. Let's talk about my tight end stat prediction. So,
Nice.
Mason Taylor. So, the Jets tight end room's going to be good this year. I feel like it's going to be good. So, Mason Taylor is going to have like 90 receptions for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Stone Smart is going to have 40 receptions for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think Jeremy Rucker's going to have like 20 receptions for 200 yards and 0 touchdowns. What's your thoughts on my tight end stat predictions? And go Jets.
150 catches for the tight end room? I don't know. I don't think Justin Fields is throwing the ball this much. 90 catches and only 500 yards. That's like, what, 5 yards a reception? That's not a great conversion for Mason Taylor. We got to go lower on the receptions. You're not far off on the yardage, I think. I'm going to say maybe like 40 catches, somewhere in the 500s in yards, and I think a couple more than 3 touchdowns, maybe 5 touchdowns. Stone Smart's not catching 40 passes this year. I think maybe gives you 200 receiving yards. And Jeremy Rucker also not catching 20 passes, also probably not getting you 200 yards. Remember, the Jets are going to be a run-heavy football team. And we have all the wide receivers and all the running backs to distribute, and the tight ends too, which included, that you have to distribute the ball. So unless Fields is throwing for like 5,000 yards this year, which I would love to see, which I don't think that's happening. I think they're going to be a heavy run team. If Fields throws for 3,500 yards, maybe things look a little bit different, but we got to work backwards here. We got to have the numbers for the quarterback first, and then do a little math to make sure that it's adding up and makes sense. Because we projected like 5,500 passing yards from Justin Fields, which is not going to happen this year unless something drastic changes. Jerome from Savannah, what do you got?
Matt O'Leary, thank you so much for taking my call. This is Jerome from Savannah. I called you yesterday right as the news broke about Justin Fields. Please use this message instead if you're going to use them. I was quite upset, but thankfully, it's just a toe. In the immortal words of Walter Sobchak, toe. You want a toe? I'll get you a toe. I can get you a toe by 3 o'clock with nail polish. Anyway, my bad.
Good.
Big Lebowski reference there.
I like it.
Yeah, but it is amazing, though, don't you think, like, the way news travels nowadays as opposed to the way facts travel. We knew that Justin Fields had been carted off the field. We didn't know the extent of the injury, and immediately everyone is just completely flying off the handle, myself included. I'm not exempt from that. And but I think it's not just Jets fans' PTSD of Vinny Testaverde, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, that sort of thing. I think it's also just the way information travels nowadays. There's a lot less responsibility in journalism than there should be. There's more of an emphasis on getting the story out. And unfortunately, the way sports so viscerally affects every individual that follows it, the reactions are going to, I guess, naturally be completely batshit, right? They're going to be completely over-embellished and the world, the sky is falling, the world is ending, that sort of thing. But now that we know Fields is, going to be day-to-day, this is obviously great news. I'm rooting like hell for this kid. I mean, I was already. if I could be rooting more for him now than I was before, I certainly am. So let's talk about something, positive for a change. Drama-free up until this point, right?
There you go.
Breakout year from Isaiah Davis. Let's go.
I like that.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Jerome. Little hot take at the end. I like Isaiah Davis a lot. I thought, he looked really good in the second half of last year. Excited to see how the Jets decide to use their running backs. And you're right, the Jets finally caught a break, man. When it's hard not to have the reaction when you hear the card is out, non-contact, lower body injury. How do you not have PTSD? As a Jets fan, how do you not have that initial reaction? And, you bring up an interesting point on how your reporting is today. I said this at the time too. I don't necessarily blame the beat reporters for how they report it. They were just saying what they saw, which was he stood up, sat back down, got on the cart, in the front of the cart, and it didn't look like it was a contact injury. Okay. That's fair. But as Jerome is saying here, we do live in a world where first is important. And it's very, very hard. It's so important as a journalist to be accurate. But in the social media age, timing is everything, and it's a race to be first. And it does water down the service a little bit. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and I don't think it's changing anytime soon. If anything, it's just going to continue and get worse. Peter from Hudson Valley, what do we got?
Hey, Matt. It's Peter calling from up in the beautiful Hudson Valley on this late Sunday evening, so I remember this week to try and get in early and not so late like I did last week. And calling after week 1 of training camp has concluded. Thank God that the injury to Justin Fields was not as overblown as some people made it out to be, and sounds like he will wind up playing some in the preseason and not be too far behind in learning the offensive scheme. I've watched earlier tonight and last Thursday the first 2 episodes of Origins for this season. Great stuff on Will McDonald and Olu Fashion tonight.
I still got to watch.
I love seeing that. Like Joe Tippmann, and I forgot who the other one was. So the next 2 episodes up.
Michael Carter, I
believe. One later this week, and one probably next Sunday as well. So great stuff, of course, always coming out of the One Jets Drive series for the Jets. But I'm noticing roster moves in the last couple of days. They signed a guy, defensive back McAllister, who obviously played some in Denver, so he has a connection with Muji. But then they claimed Ryan Cooper today, a cornerback who just got cut by Miami. And seems like, at least for now, the punting competition is over since they cut Ty Kroger. In the meantime, I still think they'll probably get another punter in camp before the preseason and stuff happens. So we'll see what happens there. But I just wanted to know your thoughts on these moves in the defensive secondary. Does it signal that maybe they're, level on some of the other guys that are kind of borderline, like maybe Derek Bernard-Converse or people like Jalen Simpson, Jarius Monroe? I mean, have we seen anything from those guys in training camp? Because I haven't heard much about any of those guys. So just wanted to find out your thoughts on the latest roster moves, considering they didn't beef up any other positions that obviously you guys have been talking about that they probably should beef up. The secondary is probably pretty good overall. And as always, let's go Jets.
Yeah, thank you so much for the call, Peter. Those really seem like moves around the edges to me. I don't know how much of a shot the guys that they added are going to have at making this team. Really only, and this was after you called, but really only Nick Folk, I would think. And one of the last things that you brought up was the secondary, corners and safeties. And cornerback room, no issue with. Safety, we were all maybe a little bit concerned with, right? Because you brought in Cisco, which is fine. But outside of that, it's, Tony Adams and Isaiah Oliver and day 3 rookie battling it out for another spot. But to be truthful, for the first week plus of training camp, I've thought the safety room has looked pretty good. Malachi Moore's made plays, especially when the pads have come on. Tony Adams looked better than I think he did a year ago so far. And Isaiah Oliver was making a couple plays in pass defense. So while, in a perfect world, maybe safety is a spot you look at and you go, ooh, I would like to improve that spot. And that's, an area that I talked about a lot this offseason. But they've looked pretty good so far. And who knows, as we get to the preseason, that could change either positively or negatively, and then you evaluate from there. But on the names that you did bring up, like McAllister, and I don't, they might just want to get a look at them in the preseason games. I don't know if there's really a shot of them unseating a guy like a Jarek Bernard Converse, for example. I'd be surprised by that. We'll close with PG, who wants to talk some Aaron Glenn.
Hello, Matt O'Leary. PG from Long Island here. Thank you for taking the call. I want to talk about Aaron Glenn. Obviously, he's gotten A+ marks so far across the board. We've all heard about it, read about it, and so far so good. But his first test is going to come when he's coaching an NFL game and he gets a tough decision to make. Like, the Jets have the ball, the opponent's 35-yard line, 4th and 4, under 4 minutes, they're down by 6. Does he kick a field goal? Does he go for the 4th down and try and get the touchdown and not drive? And it reminds me of the Texas Hold'em, right? There's just, the card's just a small part of the equation. There's so many things to think about, so many things
You're right.
That he has to consider, and he has to do it under the gun, fast. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, he seems that he's well prepared as a coach. He's been planning for this, but I don't think there's any way you can really prepare for that. You can simulate it all you want, but until you're under fire in a game situation, I think that's really where the true test comes. And again, that's something that's very important to the success of a coach, his in-game decision. So that's going to be interesting to watch. The other next test is a litmus test. So we spoke about Michael Clemens, and he obviously had a bad year last year, but by all accounts, he is starting opposite Will McDonald with Johnson out, so the Jets staff obviously feels pretty strongly about him. And he's had discipline problems, and I don't just mean the stupid penalties where he's jumping on top of a pile at the end of the play. I mean just discipline and sticking with his assignments. How many times did we see him shoot down the line of scrimmage to tackle a running back who doesn't have the ball? Meanwhile, the quarterback is running wild around end. That his assignment was to contain. I mean, we saw it at least twice in one game, maybe 3 times. So if the Jets can take Michael Clemens, their coaching staff can take Michael Clemens and make him a good rotational defensive end, I think that's a big buy-in for the job that they could do, or that they may do. Again, I'm going to look at it as a litmus test. I'm going to keep an eye on Clemens, and see his development. I think it'll be very interesting as well. Anyway, Matt O'Leary, as always, get your thoughts, and as always, go Jets.
Yeah, I really appreciate the call there, PG. We don't know what Glenn is going to be like in game until we get to the regular season. I'm glad you didn't say preseason too, because he's not going to show anything in the preseason. They're not going to be over aggressive and show their hand in games that don't matter. It's about evaluating the roster. But that's a good point. Are they going to take a field goal, on 4th and short situations? How aggressive are they going for it? Does he know when to take timeouts? That could be another improvement over Robert Saleh. Are they a disciplined team? And for the staff with Michael Clemens, look, I really hope that they're able to get more out of him, because if you look at this roster right now, he's their third edge. And with Jermaine Johnson out, for now, he's starting. So he's going to play. And they speak highly of him, so I expect him to be here. Whether we agree with it or not is one thing. But since he's going to be here, I really hope they get the most out of him. And if he can be closer to what he was as a rookie, be good on running downs, cut back on, the over pursuing as you described, cut back on the penalties too, maybe there is a useful player in there. Uphill battle, but maybe there's a useful player in there. Guys, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new to the pod, and I'll catch you next time.